Split was born as a Syracusan colony. It later became a Roman city developed around the sumptuous palace of the Emperor Diocletian, built in 300 AD. Subsequently various domains followed one another and was part of the Republic of Venice for almost 4 centuries, leaving numerous vestiges as an inheritance. Despite having suffered damage in the Yugoslav War of the 90s, in recent years, the city has been enjoying a period of considerable economic and tourist expansion. The Diocletian's Palace, a sort of large fortified Roman villa, is presented as an autonomous structure, a citadel dedicated to the sacred figure of the emperor. For Diocletian, in Split there was already a mausoleum destined to house him forever. The structure it remembers the typical plan of the Roman military camps. 2 perpendicular streets, the Cardo and the Decumanus, which intersect and from which numerous transversal streets branch off, perpendicular in a checkerboard pattern. The building has one side overlooking the sea and 4 mighty square towers at the corners. Originally its walls were 18 meters high and 2 meters thick. It measured 215 by 181 meters. In these walls there are still 4 doors flanked by towers with an octagonal base. Check where the water comes from in this quaint fountain. Brac is one of the largest islands in Croatia. Numerous visitors come to the island of Brac, which can be reached by ferry from Split, because the sea here is truly enchanting. The transparency of the water and its greenish-blue color enchant the tourist and remain well etched in the memory even after a long time. Brac can also boast of having supplied the first material for the construction of one of the most famous buildings in the world, namely the White House in Washington. Another historical building built with the precious white stone of Brac is Diocletian's palace in Split. The extraction of stone was one of the main industries. But today the islanders prefer to devote themselves to tourism and the cultivation of vines. In Brac there is the most photographed beach in all of Croatia, Zlatni Rat. A strip of pebbles that stretches out towards a very transparent sea, which has nothing to envy to more exotic and distant destinations. Zlatni Rat, which means golden horn, extends for about 300 meters on a promontory on the southern coast of the island. The peculiarity of this beach is that its shape changes as the tides, currents and wind vary. An almost constant mistral wind and crystalline water, even if a little cold, make it a must for windsurf lovers. The beach is surrounded by a pine forest, where you can find the remains of a Roman villa and an ancient swimming pool. Omis. It is a small town and port at the mouth of the Cetina River. In the 13th and 14th centuries, Omis was the home and port of pirates, who used their fast ships to attack merchant ships at the mouth of the river. Once the successful attacks were over, the pirates quickly retreated up the Cetina River, where merchant ships and any escort ships could not follow them, due to the shallow draft of the river mouth. In this period, the Omis pirates were the most terrible on the Adriatic coast, and the merchant republics, such as Venice or Ragusa, made agreements with them not to be attacked. Today, Omis is a very famous tourist destination, so much so that the number of inhabitants triples in the summer season. The fortress of Stari Grad is located on the top of the mountains behind Omis, in a strategic position to defend the port below. In the Middle Ages it was reinforced several times by the Venetians, to defend the city from land raids by the Turks and Illyrian tribes. Famous for the beautiful walls that surround it, it is the southernmost city in Croatia. Protected from the Bura, from the mountains that rise behind it, and from the Sirocco from the island of Lokrum. It is with the Plitvice lakes, the main attraction of Croatia. Mandatory stop for large cruise ships that ply the Mediterranean. Sevens, the territory is covered by a luxuriant Mediterranean vegetation. Numerous gardens and arboretums, lemon and orange crops, tropical and subtropical plants. In 1416 the Republic of Dubrovnik was the first European state to abolish slavery in the use of slaves. The city has been subjected several times to the earthquakes that shook the city in 1520 and above all by the terrible earthquake of April 6, 1657, which destroyed a large part of the city, killing 5,000 people. The characteristic of the city are its smooth stone streets and the numerous alleys that rise towards the hill behind. Following the dissolution of the Yugoslav Republic and the subsequent war in Croatia, the city found itself almost on the front line, and on 6 December it was bombed by the Serbian and Montenegrin armed forces from the mountains and behind the city. The bombs caused many victims and did not even spare the historic center, which was significantly damaged. With the end of hostilities, the city quickly recovered and regained its cultural and tourist vocation. But the locals still care not to forget and to show the damage caused by the servants. Piazza della Loggia is the heart of the city. Some of the main monuments of the city are located or overlooked there. Orlando's column from 1400, symbol of city independence. The Sponza Palace of 1500, seat of the customs and the mint. The Gothic door of the Dogana with the overlying Loggia del Campagne reopened and restored only in 1952, which gives its name to the square. The Stradon cuts into the city. It represents the Dubrovnik Salvarium that connects the Porta a Monte with the Piazza della Loggia, the traditional name of the street of Venetian origin. The old port is located just outside the walled city and was the main port of Dubrovnikora, replaced by that, where ferries and cruise ships dock. The perimeter walls of the historic center of Dubrovnik, a must for all tourists. They are considered to be one of the most beautiful wonders in all of Croatia. In ancient times they served as a defensive system of the city. They have withstood time and wars magnificently. Today they still completely surround the old city center. It is possible to go up for a long walk that acts from the unique top. in Dubrovnik. Our visit to Croatia ends. Montenegro awaits us tomorrow. Montenegro is a region made up of high mountains. The mountains of Montenegro are among the ruggedest European territories, rising on average to more than 2,000 meters. The capital is Podgorica, and the entire population of the state does not reach 700,000 inhabitants. Since June 2006, Montenegro is one independent state. Previously it belonged to Serbia and is not part of the United Europe, but adopted the euro as the only national currency. Montenegro is a parliamentary republic and the GDP per capita is very low. Around €6,000 per person per year. Over 70 per 100 of the population is of Orthodox religion. But there is also a notable minority. About 20% are Muslim. Tourism, which has a strong increase of around 20% per year, is the country's main resource. Perast is a small town located inside the Boka Kotorska, a deep and vast inlet on the Montenegrin coast. Historically it is famous for its extreme loyalty to the Venetian Republic. When the Doge of Venice, defeated by the Austrians, handed over the insignia to the enemy Perast for another 4 months. He waved the flags of the Venetian Republic on its walls and subsequently fell only thanks to the mass intervention of the Austro-Hungarian troops. In front of the village there are 2 small islands. The island of San Giorgio, which houses a grove of cypresses, and the Benedictine Abbey of the Scalpello Island, where the sanctuary of the Madonna dello Scalpello stands. Erected in the century, crowned by a large 1720 dome. Dello Scalpello also has the distinction of being one of the few artificial islands in the Adriatic Sea. It is not an emerged rock, of course, but created on a bulwark of rocks on which hundreds of old ships laden with stones were sunk. In addition, the locals, upon returning from each sea voyage, carried and threw a rock near the rock. The custom of throwing stones into the sea still exists annually. Every the 22nd of July there is a recurrence in which the locals reach the rock at sunset with their boats and throw stones in the direction of the island, contributing to its expansion and consolidation. The seabed around the rock is about 40 meters deep. The island is part of the natural and cultural historical region of Boka Kotorska, declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Today's Church of the Madonna dello Scalpello, restored after the earthquake of April 1979, contains many paintings and also houses a rich collection of 2,500 ex-votos. Kotor. It is a splendid and picturesque town nestled in the mountains at the bottom of the homonymous mouth of Kotor. It is a pearl of rare beauty that combines the charm of the historic city with the spectacular scenery of the largest fjord in the Mediterranean. Its mighty walls, built from the 9th century and remodeled up to the 18th, arch up the steep slope behind the town from afar to barely distinguish from the grey side of the mountain. But at night they are illuminated, and are reflected in the sea, enveloping land in a golden halo. Inside the walls there is a labyrinth of stone-paved alleys and hidden squares, among which you can find Catholic and Orthodox churches, souvenir shops, bars and restaurants for every taste. In the months of July and August, tourists flock to the streets of the center, and the marina is filled with luxury yachts. Fortunately, it managed to protect itself against mass tourism, which mainly affects the Croatian coast to the north. Perhaps because its waters are not particularly suitable for bathing. For years, Kotor has become a fixed port for the large cruise ships of the Mediterranean. The best thing to do in Kotor is to get lost in the maze of narrow streets of Stari Grad. The old town extended between the bay and Mount Sveti Ivan. The main access to the historic center is the Sea Gate, built in 1755 in the time when the town was under the Venetian account. Wandering through the streets of the city you can still see bas-reliefs of the winged lion of San Marco, symbol of Venice. The most impressive building in the city is the Catholic Cathedral of San Trifone, originally built in the 12th century, but rebuilt several times due to the damage caused by numerous earthquakes. Other churches to visit are the small and pretty Church of San Luca and the Church of San Nicola. Among the most interesting and tiring things that can be done in Kotor, there is the climb of the city walls along the 1350 steps up to the top of the mountain that dominates the town from its 1,200 meters of altitude. The ascent that follows the route of the ancient fortifications is rather tiring. But once at the top, the view is unforgettable. The city of Budva contains in its territory a series of attractions particularly suitable for anyone who wants to combine fun, history, sea and nature. The typically medieval city is surrounded by high walls and is characterized by picturesque alleys, squares and buildings. Recently it has become one of the most famous seaside fun resorts in the whole Mediterranean. Here the coast is particularly rugged and steep. The mountains reach the sea with huge and steep cliffs. The coast of Budva is about 21 kilometers long and has 17 beaches, all characterized by a crystal clear sea. The price is a rock bottom €5 for an umbrella with 2 sunbeds. The whole historic center was closed by a beautiful fortification, and inside, already from the late afternoon there is a lively crowd. The castle can be visited and houses a restaurant not to be missed. picturesque Sveti Stefan, located 5 kilometers south of Budva, is one of the most beautiful and charming places on the Montenegrin coast. In the end, however, it turns out to be a strong disappointment. The entire island, in fact, is privately owned, transformed into a luxury hotel, and access is strictly forbidden to non-guests of the hotel. It can only be admired from the surrounding hills. The prices of access to the beach are mind-boggling indeed, insane, given that in Budva you only spend a few euros for the same service. Bosnia-Herzegovina, whose capital is Sarajevo, is a parliamentary republic of about 3.5 million inhabitants, has been independent from Serbia since 1992, following the Balkan War. Per capita GDP is only €4,000 per year. The currency is the convertible mark, which has a fixed exchange rate with the euro. A mark is worth half a euro. The dominant religion is Islam with 45 per 100, then followed by Orthodox Christians who are only 35 per 100. When Bosnia and Herzegovina proclaimed its independence, the Serbs struck with unprecedented fury on Sarajevo and other parts of the country. After 4 years of siege of the capital, the UN Protection Force intervened militarily in a concrete way, thus putting an end to one of the most atrocious European conflicts of the 900. Bosnia and Herzegovina to a small access to the Adriatic and a stretch of coast less than 20 kilometers. This territory divides Croatia in two, and in fact the Dubrovnik region cannot be reached from the rest of Croatia except by crossing the Bosnian border. Mostar built along the Narenta River. The name Mostar derives from its old bridge, the Stari Most, and from the towers on the two banks called Mostri, which, together with the surrounding area, was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. In 2005 the city was founded in ancient times by the Turks Ottomans. Between 1992 and 93, after Bosnia and Herzegovina declared independence, the city was subjected to bombing by the serfs and the siege lasted 9 months. During the siege, the city continued to be bombed from positions in the mountains in the hands of Serbian and Montenegrin troops. The stone bridge from the 16th century was destroyed on November 9, 1993 by fire from a Croatian mortar. In 2004 the reconstruction was completed at the same time as the recovery of the entire old town. The Stari Most is a humpback bridge 4 meters wide and 30 meters long and dominates the river from a height of 24 meters. The bridge is certainly the most representative symbol of the city. Traditionally, since its construction, the young people of the surroundings have faced the plunge from the bridge into the Niranta. It is a dangerous jump and only within the reach of very experienced divers, because both the temperature and the depth of the river water are very low. A few kilometers from Mostar stands the Bla Gate, a sacred building built by the dancing dervishes located next to the source of the river Buna. The buildings, a structure to host pilgrims and a dervish dance school, seem to form a single entity with the mountain. The construction dates back to 1520. Sarajevo has about 800,000 inhabitants and is a city famous for the fact that here, Orthodox Christian churches, mosques and synagogues coexist side by side. The city suffered severe damage during the bombing of the recent Balkan War. Immense white areas can be seen on the surrounding hills. They are the Muslim cemeteries of the victims of the siege. This completely renovated building is the National Library. During the night, between 25 and the 26th of August 1992, the Serbian army attacked the building that housed the National Library with firebombs and cannon fire. The attack lasted for 3 days, as firefighters, librarians and volunteers tried to save the books from the flames, while snipers and anti-aircraft guns continued to hit the building. In the end, only a tenth of the books kept in the National Library managed to escape from the flames. The Emperor's Mosque is the first mosque built after the conquest of Bosnia and built according to the classic Ottoman style of the time. It is considered one of the most beautiful mosques of the Ottoman period in the Balkans. The mosque has extensive interior decorative details, of high quality, such as the mihrab. Sarajevo appears to us Westerners as an Islamic city with the characteristic artisans who sell products related to local crafts, such as fabrics, carpets and food and wine specialties, on the street. Walking through the streets of Baskazij, the historic center, you can find from small clubs to kiosks and restaurants open at all hours of the day and night, where they serve the famous cevapcic, the classic street food of the Balkans. Baskarcia was the area dedicated to the main market of the city and was born where the caravanserai stood. Today it is a place full of life and very popular with tourists who like to browse the market. The streets, very narrow and full of smells, are reminiscent of a traditional Arab soup. The Sacred Heart Cathedral is located in the historical center of the city of Sarajevo. It was built in the late 1800s. The building was damaged during the siege of Sarajevo and subsequently underwent restoration. On the way back, we returned to Croatia to visit Plitvice Lakes National Park, which is located halfway between Zagreb and Zadar and consists of 16 lakes, fed by 2 rivers: the White River and the Black River, and other underground sources. The lakes are connected to each other by a series of waterfalls which then flow into the Korana River. In 1979 they were proclaimed a World Heritage Site by UNESCO and can be visited thanks to a well-marked network of paths consisting of 18 kilometers of wooden walkways, which give the walk on the water a unique charm. Plitvice Park is divided into 2 parts at the top, whose lakes are located in a valley surrounded by forests and connected by spectacular waterfalls, and the lower part, where smaller lakes and lower vegetation can be seen. Numerous animal species live in the park area, including bears, wolves, wild boars, foxes and badgers, and several bird species. To visit the whole Plitvice National Park it takes no less than 8 to 10 hours. Obviously walking. In fact, any vehicle is prohibited inside the park.